Vad är det håller? Ich halte Aldwina und willkommen to English mit Aldwina. Strong verbs. Should you be scared of them? Why, the answer is no. So yes, today we're going to be talking about strong verbs, vowel change verbs, whatever you like to call them. I'm going to call them strong verbs, even though I never use those Grimm Brothers terminology, and I'll get to why. Strong verb. I'm going to use it because vowel change verb isn't terribly helpful. There's a lot of weak verbs which have vowel changes. For example, sellon. The past tense of sellon is salde. That's a vowel change, and so I'm just going to use strong verb. That's a traditional word. People know what a strong verb is if they know Germanic languages, so we're just going to use strong verb and keep it easy. So, characteristics of strong verbs. They show vowel changes, as implied by the alternate name I gave and then promptly ungave them, in the present and past tense. These are the source of most of our irregular verbs. Run, ran, run, sing, sang, sung, grow, grew, grown, etc., etc., etc. We have a lot of these in English. We had a lot of these in Old English. We had verbs that are weak now that are strong in Old English. For example, help, which I've written down there. Modern English, help, helped, helped. Old English, help on help, geholpen. So, yeah. In Old English, you have 3 to 5 different vowels throughout the verbal paradigms. So an example of a verb with 3 is ridon, which is to ride. So we can see ridon, rit, rad, ridon, riden. There's 3 separate vowels. There's I, A, and I. And then for an example of 5, we have helpon, hilpt, halp, hulpon, holpen. So, help, hilp, halp, hulp, holp. So, I, A, U, O. So there's 5 vowels. There's some with 4, there's some with 3, there's some with 5. There's never more than 5. So, yeah. Classes. Traditionally, there are 7 classes of strong verbs, and these are all put together based on kind of similarities in their vowel changes. So there are several subclasses, but there are 7 main classes. It's best to just memorize the vowel changes rather than thinking of classes, but I'm going to use classes because it's shorter than writing a bunch of vowels out. Eventually you'll start to get a feel for them and such, but especially at the beginning, just memorize the 5 principal parts. Principal part is a grammar term for forms of a word you need to know to construct the entire conjugation for a verb. So, if you know these, you can create any form of the verb as long as you know what you're doing. In the Old English strong verb, we have 4.5 principal parts. And I say 4.5 because one of these forms is very regularly derived from another of these forms. Technically, you don't need it as a principal part because you can regularly derive it. But I'm going to list it out because it's easier that way. So, the 5 parts are infinitive, third person singular present indicative, first person singular past indicative, first person plural past indicative, and past participle. In layman's terms, to sing, he sings, I sang, we sang, have sung. And as I mentioned, third singular present indicative, which is the point 5. It's the umlaut of the infinitive, so it is derived regularly, but it's just easier to write it out as separate, especially for beginners. So, examples of the 5 principal parts. Helpon. As I mentioned, it means help. It looks like it means help. So, the 5 principal parts, which have already been listed down there, and are now listed according to their forms. Infinitive, helpon, third singular present, hilpt, 1 singular past, halp, 1 plural past, hulpon, past participle, holpen. And the vowels are e, I, A, U, O, as mentioned. And from these, you can build the rest of the conjugation. So, in conjugation tables, I'm going to be numbering the principal parts. So, yeah, since the same parts are used with every strong verb, I can just use the numbers, and y'all will know what I mean. So, here's how to conjugate a strong verb in the present tense. And so you have to remember both the endings and the vowels that you need to be using. So each vowel 1, e, thu, vowel 1.5, st, hit, he, heu, vowel 1.5, th. We, ye, he. Vowel 1, off. Subjunctive, singular. Vowel 1, e. Subjunctive, plural. Vowel 1, in. So, what do we notice? Well, what we notice is that the present tense endings match those of the weak verbs. The only difference is we have vowel changes. And notice how they are in the same place as the oddities in the weak verbs and in Bern. As I said, this is a repeating pattern that comes up again and again with verbs. It's always the thu form and the hit form that are weird. So, here's helpon. Ich helpe, du hilpst, hit hilpt, we helpoth, ich helpe, we helpen. So those are present tense forms. You can see the same endings, change the vowel. Here's the past tense forms. Ich and hit, vowel 2, and then nothing. Thu, vowel 3, and then e. We, vowel 3, and then on. Subjunctive for singular is vowel 3 and then e. And the subjunctive plural is vowel 3 and then n. So, what we notice is, in the past tense, no ending, ich halp. Notice how it's just the stem, with the change vowel, obviously. To singular past is identical to the past subjunctive, which you'll notice. Du hulpe, ich hulpe. And historically, that is because the original form of this was replaced by the subjunctive form, because the original forms were very irregular of these strong verbs. The original two singular past, for helpon, I believe it would have been something along the lines of halft. But this is a very archaic form, and I don't think it was ever written in Old English, so just don't remember helft at all. It doesn't exist. So, notice the two singular past does not have st on the end. Later Middle and Early Modern English added that ending back onto the strong verbs to make them more like the weak verbs. And that's where you get the things like thou spakest, thou grewest. But these are not how you said it in Old English. In Old English, there was no st on the end. So, thou spakest was in Old English thu sprache. Thou grewest in Old English was thu graue. So, yeah, no st on the end. And once again, all the plural forms are identical. This is always the case. I've mentioned it in all the verb videos, but I'm going to mention it here again, just to remind you of that pattern. So, verb classes. I'm just going to list their sets of principal parts. Write these down, memorize them if you must. So, class 1, E, E, A, I, I. 2A, Eu, I, A, U, O. 2B, U, U, A, U, O. 3A, I, A, U, U. 3B, Eu, I, A, U, O. 3C, E, I, A, U, O. 4, E, I, A, O. Number 5, E, I, A, E. 6, A, O, A. And class 7. Class 7 has by far the most subclasses, but notice that all class 7 verbs, principal part 4 is equal to part 1. So, 7a, a, e, a. 7b, a, I, a. 7c, a, I, a. 7d, a, e, a. And 7e, o, e, o. So, yeah. Go back, write those down. I don't expect you to have those memorized, obviously, right now. I just kind of listed through a whole bunch of vowels. So, yeah. If I show a strong verb in a video and like an explanation of a sentence, I'll be writing the class of it. You'll know to go back to this, etc., etc. So, yeah, practice. I don't expect you to have the classes memorized. You can go back and reference them. You can reference the endings if you need to. So, yeah, pause the video and conjugate verpon, bakon, and riton. So, werpan, which means to throw. The principal parts, as it is a class 3 verb, are L, I, A, U, O. So, each werpe, part 1, the wirps, part 1.5, het wirpth, we werpath, each werpe, we werpen. Past tense, each werp, part 2, the worpe, part 3, het werp, we werpon, each werpe, we werpen. Alrighty, so that's werpan. This is bakon. Principal parts are a, o, a. As you can see, the principal parts are in the same place as werpan's case. In the case of bakon, bok and bokon have the same vowel. Obviously that was not the case with werpan. And the last example is riton. Similarly to bakon, we have two parts that have the same vowel. This time it is the first two. Each rite thu ritst. These are both the same because obviously you cannot front E further than you can. You can't front it more than that. It is already the frontest it can be, so it doesn't change. Hit rit, because of course th is not something we do. We don't say hit rit. That's just not something that's said. All the endings are the same. All the parts change as they normally do. Notice that in the subjunctive, present, and past, the only difference is vowel length. So, I may write ich rite, I would write ich rite. So yeah, keep that vowel length distinct. Present participle is part 1 end. Past participle is part 4 n. So helpend, werpend, bakend, ritend, holpen, warpen, baken, riten. So yeah. Stonke auf att jag gissar min iwunghord åt tona nixtan timon, och am nixtan iwunghorde it spreke be unregolicium ordum, wacum on strongum, and that means in the next video I'll be talking about irregular strong and weak verbs. Thank you so much for watching.